Hi, this is Chris Castle, and you're listening to Your Morning Coffee, the podcast with Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchert. Weekly music news for the new music business.
From our friend Drew Thurlow for Billboard, the trouble with labeling AI music, why a proposal to add AI tags is missing the point.
From the team at Billboard, 8 music business stories to watch in the last half of 2026.
From Murray Stassen from Music Business Worldwide, 90,000 AI tracks flood Deezer every day, passing 50% of all new music uploads for the first time.
And from Olivia Jones from Media Research via Hypebot, major album launches are leaving streaming. What will bring them back? All this, plus Jay talks with Sam Ramirez from Spotify about their recent announcement. For the first time, Spotify lets artists pitch their music videos directly to its editorial team for playlist consideration. Well, this and many more things on a hot day here in Southern California. We're really glad you're here. We're going to start the show right about now.
Stand by for transmission.
This is London calling.
Wake up! The revolution is at hand!
Your morning coffee is on the air. 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 Standing by. Your morning coffee, the weekly music news for the new music business. It's the highly curated, agitated, advocated, moderated, and liberated digital music information that you need to know. We are your digital music authority. And now from our studios in Hollywood, California, here's your hosts, Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart.
Well, Jay, so good to see you on, as I said, a fairly toasty day here in Southern California. By the way, the Your Morning Coffee podcast, A Conversation with Dan Macta, that's a special episode. It is live. If you don't know, Dan is the managing director over at Qobuz, and we had a lovely conversation.
Yeah, we sure did. You know, a few weeks ago, there was a Wired magazine article titled, "Qobuz is the anti-Spotify music streamer you've been waiting for." It revealed that some new subscribers actually came to the platform for political reasons, not necessarily audiophile reasons. And Dan breaks that down for us and much, much more.
Yep, do check it out. It was a good one. It was a fun one for us, certainly.
Yeah.
Interesting thing from Mandy Delugdug over at Music Business Worldwide. Spotify pushes deeper into music videos with new chart and artist pitching, stepping up its challenge to YouTube. So Spotify, for the first time, lets artists pitch their music videos directly to its editorial team for playlist consideration.
Yeah, Spotify also launched its first chart dedicated to music videos, the Music Video Charts Global, and that went live last Tuesday, and it ranks the top 50 videos worldwide by daily stream count, according to Spotify. And like you mentioned, I had a chance to sit down with Sam Ramirez from Spotify this week. Let's listen in. Sam, welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Jay.
So Spotify just announced a deeper integration with video on the platform. Tell us about it.
Yes, on Spotify, video goes beyond views and draws fans deeper into an artist's music. So we're building video core into how music gets discovered, delivered, pitched, and measured. So artists can now upload full-length videos directly through Spotify for Artists, whether it's an official music video, a live performance, a studio session, or even a cover. Nearly 100,000 artists already have access in the beta. And for the first time, artists can now pitch those videos directly to our editorial team, just like they already do for music. And we've launched Music Video Charts Global, our first chart entirely dedicated to music videos.
Talk a little bit about having video. How do you think that affects fan behavior?
Yeah, so we think about it as video as like really like a main entry point, right? So we're consistently seeing that after watching a video on Spotify, people stream that song more. So they're more likely to save it, to share it, or they even go on to explore more about artist music. And we have some early results that we can share. So data shows that listeners who watch a video stream that song 64% more often over the next 3 weeks than similar listeners who only streamed the audio.
So if you're an artist, how do you upload video? How do you, pitch it, get discovered, and see if your video is charting?
100%. Yes. So artists with access can go to the video and visuals tab in Spotify for Artists desktop. From there, they upload a video, they connect it to the relevant track and add details such as like the video ISRC. And they continue delivering video, of course, if you have access through like your label or your distributor. So really like the direct uploader through Spotify for Artists is an additional option. Just building upon this idea of like uploading, that's not the only action that artists can take, right? So we want to unlock also the ability for artists to pitch a video. So artists can now return to the video and visuals tab. They can pitch their videos. So just like they do with audio, you can now be eligible for editorial video playlists like best new videos, today's top videos, live performances. And then, of course, that leads into the discovery mechanism, right? So videos that are live, they can be distributed across Spotify and surfaces like Home, editorial video playlists, release pages, and now Playing View, and then Spotify's first personalized playlist videos for you.
Sam, where can our listeners learn more about submitting videos to Spotify?
Yes, the best place to start is Spotify for Artists music videos landing page. This is where artists can learn more about like eligibility, best practices, see how artists are already using video on Spotify. And then, of course, if you don't have access to some of the tools, we actually have a wait list that you can join as well, and we'll let you know when you're in.
Sam, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Very cool. Very cool. By the way, only videos that are unreleased or released within the past 7 days qualify, whether delivered by a label, distributor, or uploaded directly through Spotify for Artists.
Right. There was a piece from Aisha Malik for TechCrunch, and the headline this week was, Instagram now lets you swap out the music in your old posts. I thought this was super interesting. So Instagram announced on Tuesday that users can now swap out the music on their published feed posts and carousels. Until now, users could only change the music on a post by deleting it and then re-uploading it.
With a newly launched Replace Audio tool, users can update the music on their post at any time while keeping the post's existing likes, comments, shares, and reach intact. The Meta-owned company says the new feature is another step in its efforts to build tools that give creators more creative control over their content.
Right. And there was a really cool piece by Mandy DeLugdug at Music Business Worldwide. And the headline was, TikTok is testing an opt-in likeness detection tool that lets U.S. creators find and report AI deepfakes of themselves. So TikTok is testing this tool that lets creators find and report AI-generated videos that use their face without their permission. The opt-in feature, called likeness detection, is being tested with a limited group of creators currently in the United States.
Yeah, it was first spotted by social media consultant Matt Navarro, who wrote in a post on X on July 17th that TikTok was testing the feature with some U.S. creators. He wrote, it surfaces AI-generated content that may use a creator's face without consent.
Yeah, that's the world we live in now. So the test is limited to a small group of U.S. creators, TikTok U.S. spokesperson Zachary Kaiser told The Verge. So this week I was watching the Drowned in Sound podcast by Sean Adams. It's really a great podcast on YouTube. And this particular theme was, are fake fans the biggest revelation in music this year?
Yeah, from the Geese is a PSYOP discourse sparked by Kristen Robinson's South by Southwest interview with Chaotic Good to the clipping campaigns for Chapel Roan and the questionable reaction to Biebercella.
Biebercella. In a recent Drowned in Sound podcast that I was watching, Sean caught up with Hannah Collard, senior analyst for Media, and they reflected on the year or so far. Let's listen to a little clip.
Cheapest way of doing advertising right now because it's like $1 CPM.
So that's per 1,000 views
per
or so?
1,000, yeah, it costs per me, so it's 1,000. It's like kind of a gray area legally depending where you are because like a lot of them don't say that it's an ad or they kind of hide it. And a lot of it kind of is organic because it's like these people have signed up to the program, they're posting the clips, some of them go viral, enough accounts are posting about it because of it that the algorithm picks it up. People then, like real people then see it and go, ooh, this is a trend, like maybe it is
I need
big.
to hop on the trend.
I need to hop on the trend, and then they'll post it, and then people in the comment section will see some of the seeded comments because there's like 3 kinds of campaign. There's just the clips, there's clip plus caption, which kind of shapes the narrative, and then there's like comments, so people who go on and like spam the comments like, oh my god, best set I've ever seen, the Justin Bieber Coachella one. So one a real thing that was already quite big but then was like apparently boosted, unclear by whom, because again it's not like the origin is not necessarily clear. And once you kind of see that, I think there have been theories for a long time, but this was the first I've seen where someone's actually gone through and done like an investigation on how this actually happens and how prevalent it can be and like how much money has been spent.
Search for Drowned in Sound wherever you get your podcast. Really, really cool podcast.
Yeah, one of our other favorite YouTube podcasts, of course, we talk about it relentlessly, is Rick Beato, probably my favorite one. He sat down with Sean Ono Lennon, and they had this really great conversation about ownership versus access. And again, this is Sean Ono Lennon on the Rick Beato show. Let's listen in.
No one cares about music the way that they used to. I mean, obviously, musicians are still loved by their fans, and that's great. But what I think the internet has done for sure is it has downgraded the position of music in our society.
100%.
Yeah. It's made music infinitely available, essentially for free to everybody. And that's really great in terms of consuming music. But it sort of makes everything less valuable, less precious. It makes art less valuable, not just money-wise, but it's less important to us as a society.
Wow, that is really, really interesting, fascinating. Yeah. Again, God, he just has so many great shows. There's not enough hours in the day to check them all out.
Right.
By the way, we do want to thank our sponsors because support for the show comes from our friends at Cosign. Cosign is a reimagined publishing administration platform launched by independent music publisher Cobalt.
Right. It's designed for artists, producers, songwriters. It allows creators to collect global publishing royalties with simple, transparent terms and no long-term contracts.
In its first year of operation, Cosign was named one of the 10 most innovative companies by Fast Company. Find out why over at cosignmusic.com. And by the way, through cold weather and hot, in 312 episodes, and actually more than that, I get to hang out with my good friend, longtime pal Jay Gilbert, music business consultant, educator, curator of the weekly Your Morning Coffee newsletter, and a former executive with Universal Music, Sony Music, and the Warner Music Group.
That's right, and I get to do this show every week with my good friend Mike Etchart, longtime host of Sound and Vision Radio, formerly of SST Records, Warner Music, Capital EMI, Universal Music Group, and it's like the post office. The show must go on, as they say.
The show must go on. Well, let's jump into the big stories. The first one. It is a Billboard guest column by Drew Thurlow. The trouble with labeling AI music. Why your proposal to add AI tags is missing the point.
Yeah, Drew is a friend of the podcast. We really dig him, and we've had him on and talking about his book and all the various things he's done. And he writes about, Taylor Swift's Red from 2012. That story, her push from Nashville into pop, landing on I Knew You Were Trouble, co-written with Max Martin and Shellback. He gets specific. The chorus uses a distorted synth bass drop from Native Instruments, massive software synthesizer with programmed drums, and the vocals will run through distortion, compression, pitch correction, reverb, delay. The song hit number 2 on the Hot 100, and nobody organized against this tech.
No, he contrasts that with a real historical precedent. In May of 1982, the Central London branch of the UK Musicians Union passed a motion to ban synthesizers and drum machines, fearing job losses, and American unions later fought virtual orchestras threatening Broadway pit musicians. His thesis? The anxiety pattern repeats, even as the technology changes.
Yeah, it sure does. So let's talk about the proposal itself. The coalition pushing the labeling scheme, RIAA, IFPI, A2IM, WIN, Impala, the Recording Academy, SAG-AFTRA, and the Human Artistry Campaign, they want streaming services to tag tracks as either AI generated or AI assisted. And Drew says he understands the impulse, but thinks the scope is wrong. At best, pointless. At worst, short-sighted.
Yeah, so Drew lists 7 objections, I should say. The first, scale and attention problems. Streaming platforms hold over 253 million tracks. That's a Luminate figure. Nearly half got 10 streams or fewer in 2025. 88% got no more than 1,000 streams. His point? AI tracks will mostly disappear into the same obscurity as everything else uploaded. Karaoke, abandoned demos, amateur content, everything.
Yeah, but where's the line? AI mastering, which has been a standard for a decade, stem separation, pitch correction, sample discovery, one generative texture buried under 80 human-performed tracks. Well, he argues that soon almost every professional recording will touch machine learning somewhere in the process, making the label meaningless as a marker of anything exceptional.
Yeah, he says detection can't keep pace. No universal fingerprint for AI-generated audio. Detectors have to be trained per model, and any model update evades existing detectors. Combined with human post-processing and outright fraud, he calls it an endless game, yes, of whack-a-mole.
Right. And so let's talk about compliance costs without benefit. DSPs would need to evaluate hundreds of millions of tracks nobody hears. The pressure pushed down to distributors who can't reliably certify volume. He cites a Deezer study finding AI-generated music is under 3% of the current streaming pool, and that most of that fraction is fraud rather than legitimate use. So the label wouldn't move royalties, stop fraud, prevent infringement, or halt voice cloning.
Drew talks about limited fan impact. He says this is the part that connects a lot of our recent coverage on AI. He cites the Luminate survey finding 42% of respondents would become less interested in a song if they learned generative AI was involved in its creation, compared with 25% who would become more interested. Drew's read, that gap likely reflects how AI is discussed culturally more than how fans actually behave when a song they already like carries a small AI tag. He does carve out a real exception here, support for labeling fully AI-generated tracks where a listener might mistake it for a human artist. He also name-checks alternative platforms for AI-sensitive listeners like Bandcamp, Cantilever, NTS Radio, and Discover FM.
Yeah, and we'll be talking more about Discover FM in the coming months. Keep your eye on that one. Number 6, distraction from real problems. Voice cloning without authorization, fraudulent uploads, deceiving listeners into thinking synthetic vocals are a real artist, keeping fully AI tracks out of publishing royalty pools, and the unresolved training data legal questions. He frames these as a specific problem needing specific tools, licensing, provenance systems, fraud detection, identity verification, and legislation, not just a blanket label.
Another point he makes, he says labels age badly. His analogy, AI-assisted today risks becoming what digital meant on a 1999 CD sticker. Technically true, uselessly broad, quickly obsolete.
I work in new media, Mike. Remember that term?
I do remember that term.
Oh my gosh. So his closing argument, he really restates the synthesizer panic lesson. The takeaway isn't that new tech is automatically harmless. It's that drawing a hard line between human and machine, and that type of music, historically doesn't hold up over time. He actually, he talks about the policy ask, which is a narrower than a flat rejection. Disclosure for synthetic voice impersonation of real people, that sounds fair. Keeping fully generated tracks out of the royalty pools, fraud identification. But he draws the line well short of the coalition's AI-assisted catch-all.
Yeah, if you don't know, Drew is a former senior VP of A&R over at Sony Music, an advisor to the Mindset Music Tech Investment Fund, and a professor of music strategy, innovation, and AI at Berklee College of Music. His book, Machine Music, How AI is Transforming Music's Next Act, came out via Routledge in spring of 2026. Really good.
That's right. And we had Drew on the podcast just to talk about that book. So go through your feed and find that episode. It was a really great conversation. Our next story is by the team over at Billboard. It's sort of a part 2 to a story we covered last week, and it has, all of their great writers: Elizabeth Diltz-Marshall, Bill Donahue, Chris Eggertson, Ariel King, our friend Kristen Robinson, Rachel Scharf. All of them contributed to this piece in Billboard, and the headline was 8 music business stories to watch in the last half of 2026. So here are all 8. Number 1, catalog mergers and acquisitions fueled by ABS debt. So KBRA has rated over $13 billion in music asset-backed securitizations since 2020. And companies are under pressure to deploy that capital fast since interest starts accruing immediately. BMG's Pop House deals, Tina Turner, name, image, and likeness rights. Then a stake in Iron Maiden's catalog. They're the template, so expect more joint venture structures rather than straight acquisitions.
The second music business story to watch in this second half of the year: AI content labeling. Deezer's been auto-tagging and demoting AI tracks since early 2025. Tidal just moved to demonetize fully AI-generated recordings. Spotify and Apple are a little bit more cautious, leaning on label distributor disclosure systems instead. Now, the RIAA, A2IM, and the Recording Academy have proposed a unified explicit style label for AI content. And DEMA, streamers' trade body, seems open to it. The open question for the second half of the year: do Spotify and Apple actually adopt a uniform standard by year end? Question mark.
See previous story by Drew Thurlow. And number 3, big music business story to watch: major litigation happening. So Second Circuit Court is expected to rule soon on Diddy's sentence appeal, plus oral arguments coming in Drake's defamation suit against UMG, Salt and Peppa's catalog termination fight, also pending. Miley Cyrus, Bruno Mars Flowers trial decision, Taylor Swift trademark dispute, and the Notorious B.I.G. estate catalog proceeds case.
The number 4 story: AI legal fights are still very much alive. So, of course, Suno settled with Warner, and Udio became a walled garden to cut deals with UMG and Warner. But Sony is still suing both, and UMG hasn't settled with Suno. On the new fronts, indie artists are suing Google's Lyria over YouTube training data, and the American Federation of Musicians suing UMG and Warner over how settlement money from the Udio-Suno deals is actually reaching artists and songwriters.
Oh my gosh, so much of that going on. Number 5 story to watch: The Team. The sale of that company. So bids are in for the agency formerly known as Wasserman. It's called The Team. Providence Equity, they're an existing majority stakeholder, of course. Patrick Whitesell's WIM and Excel Sports Goldman Sachs are all named as suitors. So buyer expected to be announced in the second half of this year.
Yeah. The 6th story: CRB mechanical royalty negotiations for the 2028 through 2032 rates. So the NMPA, NSAI, and Music Artists Coalition proposed a settlement in June with Sony, UMG, WMG, A2IM on mechanical rates for physical download sales. That's now public. But the bigger fight is streaming rates, where nothing's been announced yet, and tension is expected given the bundle gate history with Spotify.
Right. To keep up on all of this, Mike and I always go to Chris Castle's Music Technology Policy. Great site if you want to stay on top of all this stuff. The number 7 story: ticket resale legislation spreading state by state. So DC's Resale Act, that's a 10% cap, and it bans speculative ticketing. That passed July 15th. Massachusetts proposed a 110% of face cap July 16th. Vermont and Maine already cap at 110%. California, New York, Washington, and Tennessee are all pursuing bills. This is accelerating post the April Live Nation antitrust verdict.
Yes, and the eighth story that's going to be a big one through this last half of the year, believe it or not, CD sales outpacing vinyl growth. Yes, CDs were up 16% year over year in the first half of 2026 versus vinyl's 2.4% growth. K-pop drove a lot of it, but even stripping that out, CDs still grew almost 7%. Luminate's read is that CDs have become an affordable collectible, especially notable since roughly half of the Gen Z millennial CD buyers don't own a CD player. More K-pop style mini album EP drops coming in August. Stray Kids and Hypen, Cat's Eye could keep the format's momentum going. And Jay, you and I have talked about this, and to be honest, I was surprised when vinyl came back on us, and now here we are with CDs.
Here it comes, and we had Jamie Markinette on recently. If you missed that special episode, go back and listen to that. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had a great conversation with Jamie Markinette, and we broke down their mid-year report, and that was one of the key stats. That CDs were up 16%, and vinyl was only up about 2.4%. Our next story is from Olivia Jones. She's from Media Research, and this story, I found it on Hypebot. And the headline was, Major Album Launches Are Leaving Streaming. What will bring them back? And the core argument is that the biggest album rollout moments are happening on social platforms, not on streaming platforms. And it's the streaming platforms, they need to become more interactive or risk losing that cultural real estate for good.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the examples cited. Like Olivia Rodrigo's You Seem Pretty Sad for a Girl So in Love got a full TikTok in-app experience, themed missions, album-inspired edit templates, community video hub. Taylor Swift's The Life of a Showgirl got multiple interactive YouTube features. And Charlie XCX's Brat Summer is framed as the textbook case. People stream the album, but the phenomenon played out socially.
Right. And she points out the underlying dynamic is that streaming has gotten more personalized and algorithmic, which paradoxically makes it feel less communal. Social media, despite fragmentation, is where the shared collective fan experience now lives. For younger listeners especially, streaming equals consumption, organization. Social media equals community and engagement.
So why is this happening on the artist label sides? Well, good music alone doesn't cut through anymore. Artists need a strong identity plus tactical marketing. Also, fan monetization strategies are pushing labels toward deeper fandom building, but not just top-of-funnel awareness. Also, traditional promo like teasers and ads get lost in the scroll. Interactive campaigns force active engagement instead of passive consumption.
So where can streaming fight back? Well, it doesn't need to become social media. Just borrow the interactivity participation playbook. And they also cite Spotify's About the Song and fan events and Deezer's music quiz gamification sort of as early moves in that direction.
Yeah, well, here's a few thoughts. This is a distribution of attention story as much as a tech story. The moment of an album has decoupled from the platform where it's actually consumed.
Yeah, and number two, is this actually solvable by DSPs or is it structural? In other words, is community just not a native strength of a personalization first product like Spotify?
Yeah, and as labels lean into fan monetization and interactive campaigns, will that open up room for AI-generated interactive content? Well, we will wait and see.
Yes, great piece. And our final story, this is from Murray Stassen at Music Business Worldwide. The headline is 90,000 AI tracks flood Deezer every day, passing 50% of all new uploads for the first time. So Deezer says fully AI-generated tracks hit a new peak in June, nearly 90,000 uploaded per day. And on peak days, that was over 50% of all the new music being delivered to the platform. That's the first time AI uploads have crossed that halfway mark. That's up sharply from the 75,000 a day, about 44%. That figure that Deezer reported back in April, showing the growth curve is accelerating, not leveling off.
Yep. Despite the flood of tracks, Deezer says fully AI-generated music still only accounts for 1 to 3% of actual streams. The mismatch here is the story. The company estimates up to 85% of AI track streams in 2025 were fraudulent and frames the uploads as largely a stream manipulation and royalty dilution play rather than genuine listener demand.
Wow, 85% fraudulent. That's staggering. In response, Deezer is now moving to actually remove AI tracks that were used for fraud, plus stale tracks, meaning unstreamed for 6 months or more. And I think, that's a step up from its prior approach of just excluding AI content from algorithmic recommendations and editorial playlists.
Yeah, well, here's what you need to know about this story. The uplift versus fraud gap is the real headline. More than 50% of uploads, but only 1 to 3% of streams is really the clean and quotable stat here for illustrating the scale of the fraud problem.
Right. Next up, detection tech is becoming a product. Deezer's tagging tool, that's been live since 2025. 13.4 million tracks tagged across 2025. Identifies output from Suno and Udio specifically. That's now being licensed out to the wider music industry. And it's worth watching as a potential B2B revenue line and de facto standard.
Right, and a patent has been granted. Deezer's detection patents were published by EU and U.S. patent offices actually back in June of 2026. Industry alignment continues. So Tidal, the June policy, blocks AI tracks from royalties. Qobuz and Apple Music have all rolled out their own tagging systems. This dovetails with the RIAA IFPI push for a standardized AI-generated versus AI-assisted labeling taxonomy that we've definitely been talking about and tracking.
That's right. And then consumer sentiment. The Ipsos survey Deezer keeps citing that 97% can't distinguish AI from human music in blind tests. 80% want AI-generated content labeled. 73% want to know when AI tracks are being recommended to them. Now, that's useful ammo, for this labeling transparency angle.
Right. And the revenue at risk here. Deezer points to CSAC and PMP strategy research suggesting up to 25% of creator revenue could be at risk by 2028.
Massive.
Wow. Yeah, that's huge.
Really, really great stuff. And before we wrap, Mike, I was talking with Sarah Page this week, and she's got this really great newsletter and website. And it's off the record with Sarah Page. It's for women in the music industry who want less noise and more clarity. And it's really practical tools, weekly reflections. She offers these toolkits. It's delivered every Tuesday. Highly recommend. Check out Off the Record by Sarah Page.
Yes, really good stuff. All right, as we wrap up the show, we do want to thank our sponsors, including Cosign. Big thanks to them. We certainly appreciate their participation. If you'd like to advertise in the podcast and the newsletter, you can jump over to yourmorning.coffee. Music is by our friends, the Licorice Quartet. And if you do like the show, Jay and I would certainly appreciate it if you would mention it to just one friend. That would really go a long way. So on behalf of my good friend Jay Gilbert, I'm Mike Etchart. Thanks for listening in, and we'll be back next week on the Your Morning Coffee Podcast.
You've been listening to Your Morning Coffee, the weekly music news program for the new music business. Join Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart next time for the digital music news you need to know.